Welcome. It's good to have you all here again on our The Right Way Business Growth Discussions. My name's Wayne Wright, and it's great to have you here this afternoon. Hope you got your sandwiches, cup of tea, some cold drink, whatever it is, and more importantly, a notebook and pen, because we've got so much to get through over this hour. It's going to fly really quickly, but more importantly, hopefully it will give you some of the keys and pointers to really move your business forward in this important area as well. So we're going to be talking about strategic planning for business growth, and really just hopefully take the opportunity to help you to move your business in this particular key area as well. So let me just sort of set the scene first of all, really, in relation to what we're trying to do today. Certainly, we're going to have some introductions. I'm going to introduce you to our lovely guests. And then we're going to go straight in and really talk about some of the key discussion elements as well. And then finally, we're going to probably have some Q&A. However, I'm okay, in terms of, if you want to put some information in terms of some questions as we go through the presentation, please use the chat in each of your mediums. We're live on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So either platforms, put the chat in, and by sheer incredible feats of technology, all those information will arrive at our points here in the studio. So please, use the chat. If there's any questions that are burning that you want to share, then please do so as well. So hopefully that will give you an area of the idea of travel going forward. So hopefully that's good. And what I'd like to do really start to now introduce you to the main protagonist that we have in the broadcast today. And the first person, obviously, definitely ladies first, I want to introduce you to Lisa Eaton. And good to have you, Lisa. Hope you can hear me and you're well.
I can, Wayne. Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
All right, great. Well, let me just introduce you to Lisa. Lisa has consistently demonstrated her strategic prowess, creating and executing successful marketing and communication strategies for both public and private organizations around the world. And she's really helped them to achieve some incredible, ambitious goals. In 2014, Lisa co-founded an integrated marketing communications agency. The award-winning campaigns for esteemed organizations and global brands garnered attention worldwide. And I think this is where Lisa scored, had that laser-focused approach to strategic planning, effective marketing, business development, and stakeholder engagement was instrumental in propelling the company to new heights. And then she's pivoted part of the business in 2021 when she launched Fabric, a learning platform for marketeers, which has already gained global recognition for its transformative approach, really, in terms of how she helps companies to really think through this particular area as well. So the Academy's framework fills the void between academic learning and industry demands, turning marketeers and their teams into the trailblazers of tomorrow. So thank you again and welcome, Lisa. Good to have you.
What a wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Check in the post. Don't worry. And the final guest for us is James Holland. And hope you're well, James. Good to have you.
Yeah, very well. Thanks, Wayne.
Good. And James is co-founder and director of NSP Cases, who are the premier business for producing flight cases to all sorts of sectors as well. So have a look on their fantastic website, NSP Cases. But these are the cases that keep your valuable business assets safe when transported from one place to another. And the business has been going for 14 years. And yes, James is that young. He looks that young. With his school buddy, business partner, Rob Sampson, they've taken the industry by storm, becoming one of Europe's innovative and high-quality businesses in their sector. And being the consummate entrepreneur that he is, James also has a recording studio, which he rents out to aspiring musicians and groups. So again, welcome, James, and hope you're well.
Thanks very much, Wayne.
Good. Well, good to have you guys. I really appreciate you coming on the show. So much to go through, but more important, I know that your wisdom in this area will sort of help as well. But let me just sort of set the scene first of all in relation to the whole element of strategy. And as always, just have a little definition of what that looks like as well. So two definitions. You've got the sort of dictionary definition of strategy in terms of plan of action designed to achieve a long-term or overall aim. But I really like the one from Michael Porter, and I know Lisa will resonate with this a little bit more. Strategy is the creation of a unique and valuable position involving the different sets of activities. And I think really when I've always talked to organisations about strategy, and James will know a little bit about this. I'm always helping organisations to think of in terms of what is the customer pain that they're trying to solve. Because invariably, sometimes as business leaders, we either don't really give a sense to the whole element of strategy, or if we do, we really forget ultimately that who we're serving at the bottom line. So really try and understand your purpose. Why should you exist in your organisation? What's the customer pain that you're solving? And really trying to get to grips with that and really create a value proposition. I know Lucy will talk a little bit about that as well. But more importantly, at this back end here on the final part of the wheel, how do we measure that so that we're sure that we are focusing on the right things and more importantly, solving our customer pain and needs going forward. So that's the bit that I want us really to focus on and to really help us hopefully to understand what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve. So without further ado, really, let's get back to sort of the meat of what we're trying to achieve as well. And from your perspective, why do people or business leaders find strategy really, really important? What's in your experience, when you talk to other leaders and obviously you guys with the process as well, and obviously with this year, that's your day job. But let's start with you. Why do organisations find strategy really important?
Is that to me? Sorry, Wayne. No, is that to James?
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, that's better. I can hear. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because often people are quite frightened by the word strategy, and simply because they don't necessarily know all of the steps to take to build a fully functioning strategy. And I often think of the simplest way to think of strategy is vision for the success of the business, and trying to really define what that long-term vision looks like. I think what is challenging is that as business leaders, we're constantly faced with the here and now, the quick wins or the firefighting that we're having to do. Yeah. So often the difficulty between not just building a strategy, but really sticking to a strategy is that delicate balance between looking to the long term, but dealing with the short term. And it's all good and well building strategy for the long term, but you also have to have the discipline to execute that plan with a little bit of wiggle room to be able to deal with the short term pains or gains, if you like. So I think it's often sometimes the fear of the unknown, not necessarily knowing exactly what a strategy should look like, how to build one, and then how to implement it. But then often the discipline that it takes to be able to stick to that strategy and really live and breathe it without getting kind of pulled into the day-to-day demands of the business can be really difficult.
No, I like the way you sort of said about sort of sticking to it as well. And from your perspective, James, I mean, this is quite pertinent as well for you, because you're always resetting the next steps in terms of your strategic direction as well. In terms of your evolution as an organization and the business, how have you seen that evolve from when you first started, just you and Rob, in a little shed somewhere, compared to where you are today?
Yeah, so I think for us, we started at the very early days of internet. So there was a lot of change in terms of what we were doing back then. And to be honest, back in the very early days, having a strategy was not something that we focused on. We were young. It was the first business we'd ever run. Everything was new, and it was even just getting a customer through the door was amazing. So, but I mean, nowadays, I think the things that I would say we and maybe other companies struggle with in terms of strategy is, I think I had a whole list of things, and it kind of boils down to distraction. And it's so easy to get distracted. And I think for different business types, you'll find it easier to stick to your strategy depending on, maybe the size will have a, if you've got surplus of staff and you're able to, easily hand out roles and jobs and have an excess amount of time. But then if you're maybe quite tight on staff numbers and you've got lots of process heavy, things going on, that can become a real strain. And you might find that you're firefighting a lot of the time, trying to just deal with the day-to-day, fixing a day-to-day issue or just fixing something. Maybe, for us in manufacturing, there can be machinery issues, and then all of a sudden, a machine that has been running fine for the last 5 years develops a problem, and you might spend the next week trying to source a part or fix it or find someone to come and fix it. And then all of a sudden, before you realize it, 2 weeks has gone past and you've not achieved anything in your strategy because you've been busy trying to fix a machine. Obviously other companies won't have that issue, but I'm sure there'll be similar, parallel things that would be of a same sort of thing. So I think whether it's a challenging customer or whether it's just lack of time, generally I think distraction overall is like Lisa was saying, that for having that, being able to have that focus, and maybe some accountability in there is helpful to keep you on track. I think it's, for me, distraction is probably the biggest the biggest downfall that can occur.
Well, let me ask you this question then. So why is it important?
So in terms of strategy, I think we've learned over the past few years that, in terms of actually focusing where you're going, you need to have an end goal. Lisa just said it a moment ago. You need to have an end goal where you're going, and then you also need to be able to work out how to get there, because, if you want to get to the north of the country, you need to know the roads to take to get you there. There's no use taking the wrong roads. You're going to end up in Devon. So it's a similar sort of thing. You've got to have some stops along the way, some points of reference that you can actually, on your journey, right, to get there, we're going to have to do this, and then we're going to have to do this. And obviously technology and things are going to change along the way. So yes, being able to adapt and maybe rewrite that strategy slightly is important.
No, I love that. And I think that's a nice little metaphor in terms of helping people to understand strategy, in the sense that, strategy is, I want to get to Newcastle to see Lisa, but then obviously the tactics is, how are you going to get there? Bus, motorbike, whatever it is, how to do that. But it's that overall, focus in terms of what you're trying to achieve and where you want to go. I want to get to Newcastle in 2 months. That's your strategic direction. But getting there is another matter. So I do like that little metaphor as well. From your perspective, Lisa, in terms of you've used strategy really well in terms of moving your integrated marketing agency straight to the academy type setup. Tell me how that thinking process to get to those two routes.
Yeah, so the route for building a new business was it was born out of a problem of lack of strategy, I guess, or lack of strategy education, maybe I should say. We were just finding that more businesses that we were working with and more senior leaders that we were working with were really struggling to build strategies for their business. And one of the challenges we would find really regularly, and I don't think this is that uncommon, although sometimes it sounds shocking, is that businesses sometimes really struggle to define what success looks like in the very early stages. So, you talked about the journey up to Newcastle. But, you know, it's not just the journey up to Newcastle. Like, what defines success about getting to Newcastle? Is it the route you take? Is it how long you get there? Is that you meet a deadline? Is it that you spend so much money getting to Newcastle? And so a lot of the challenges we would find in the really early days when we were building strategies for business was that it was working with that executive team to really define what success looked like without any gray areas, you know, using smart metrics so that there was absolutely clarity from the entire team and the entire business on what the goalposts were, what success looked like and how it would be defined, and define a set of metrics. It wasn't a gut instinct that, yes, we made it to Newcastle, but we're 4 weeks later than we really wanted to be there. It was, you know, it was real metrics. And that in itself was a bit of a learning curve, that actually this is something that businesses struggle with. And rightly so, you know, in the beginning, when we build businesses, there's no manual, right? There's nobody who teaches you how to build a business. And as you said before, often in the early days of startup, you know, the wheels are turning as frantically as possible to try and get the business off the ground. And you're not really thinking about the strategic vision. You're just thinking, are we going to survive? Can we make this business something incredible? Can we win customers? Can we pay the bills? You know, can we hire people? And you know, some of those things are the most crucial things to concentrate in the early days. I think there's a real set plan where strategy should kick in. And maybe it's not always day one, and will always be from day one, because I think much out. But I do think that found there was just a lack of education and support for business owners to know how to build an effective strategy, what it should include, how to define business success, and then how to build all of the steps that would get you there. It was a no-brainer to essentially, I guess, fill like gap in the market by building for business leaders, senior leaders, marketeers, how to build a strategy from the ground up, and then build some discipline around sticking to that strategy to implement it.
No, very good as well. You know what? It's just sometimes really hard, isn't it, for all of us as business leaders. It sounds good. It is important. It's something that we all should do, but we just don't find the time to do it. So what, in terms of your experience and you know, some little tips here, how do you encourage somebody to find the time to do this? Because sometimes it's like, you know, well, I just haven't got the time, because they don't see the value. In doing it as well. So I'll come back to you, Lisa, and then to you, James, as well. But for you first, Lisa, I mean, what's your tips for helping people to find the time to do this effectively?
I mean, honestly, for me, if you're trying to grow a business, there is nothing more important than building a strategy. It is the most important function, because you risk becoming a really busy fool. And I say that having been there and done it, and certainly not perfecting this, you know, in any way. But, you know, time is a commodity that is so valuable. You know, we only have so much of it. We only have so many hours in a day and so many days in a week. Yeah. And often in a startup business, we have really limited resource in terms of hands on deck. So you have to be really, really thoughtful about how you spend your time, where you spend that time, and what's going to make the biggest impact. And if you haven't defined that strategy, you genuinely don't know that. You're just making the wheels turn, and you have no idea if this thing that you're spending 80% of your time is making any impact towards your business goals, or if in fact the 10% of stuff you're spending the time on is making the most impact. So it's so difficult to make any type of informed decision around where you should spend your time and your budget and your resource if you don't have that. And I think you run the risk of just, you know, running around in circles, things out, but actually with no real roadmap as to how you're going to get forward.
Yeah, very good, James.
Yeah, I think there's two things that come to mind in terms of like mentorship and having people come alongside you. You know, we have time with yourself as a business mentor, and
checking the post, James. Checking the post.
And as that forces us to take time out of our day to day, you know, pull the door to, you know, sit down, put the phones on, do not disturb, and just really sort of carves out that time to actually discuss things and really sort of bring things that maybe haven't been discussed and talk about. So yeah, that's something that is really helpful for us. Yeah, and I suppose that's probably the main thing, just making that time. It is really hard. But the other thing I occasionally do is just take a couple of days and get away. There's a bit of a reset. That's really helpful. It can be tricky with family life, but it's always been very valuable. So yeah, just taking some time. But I think the only final thing the final thing that that comes to mind is looking at the things that really are sort of wasting the time and really putting effort into fixing those processes, so that every day you're not dealing with the same questions or whatever it might be. And focus on fixing those things so that actually you've got more headspace every day.
Yeah. No, I love that, and so pleased that the folks, the big takeaways from these little anecdotes there from Lisa and James is really valuing your time, and I'm a big one about, if you can recognize your time and put a value on it, and realize that if you are able to use it and get X amount of pounds or better outcomes or whatever goals that you have attributed to that, then you will focus your time on those things which are more productive and more obviously profitable. And then that's the beauty about taking that time away, as James was mentioning as well. You're able to have that real overview and working on the business rather than in the business, and it allows you to do that. I think something you said as well is quite dear to my heart as well, Lisa, is this 80-20 rule, the Pareto rule as well, where generally if 20% of stuff causing 80% of problems, about allowing you to take that step back out, look at what you're doing and saying, okay, what are the things that are causing waste and lack of profitability in your business is super important. So it's quite good. And as James says, just having, either if you can't do it, just get somebody, a good friend or somebody you can chat to or whatever, just book a long luncheon, whatever it is. Just get away and have that sounding board that allows you to be able to think of these things, because it's hard when you're in your day-to-day stuff and you're thinking about people, processes, systems, the manufacturing element, cash flow, whatever it is. It's hard to take yourself away and really think about am I doing the right things? Am I going the right direction? So I do concur with everything that you guys have said as well. So in terms of, it's a funny question, but hopefully you'll make sense of it anyway. But what's good and bad strategy? What from your perspective, what do you sense is good and bad? And somebody may say, well, there's no such thing as a bad strategy, but there can be. But let's tease that one out. So let's go to you, Lisa. What do you think?
Well, I think having a strategy is always a good starting point. So having one better than not having one is definitely a good thing. I guess a good strategy for me is clear focus, like detailed, clear focus. I've worked with lots of businesses where the strategy is the vision almost, and it sounds wonderful, but there's no metrics, there's no milestones, there's no accountability. And for me, it needs to have measurable objectives. It's so difficult, and lots of people get caught in this planning strategy and then never executing it because it's words on a piece of paper rather than something that's alive and breathing and living in the business around metrics. So for me, a really well-developed strategy is always about measurable objectives. What actionable steps are we going to take to meet those objectives, and how are we going to measure if we've met them or not? And you don't always meet your metrics, right? It's not about knocking yourself down if you haven't managed to meet those measurable objectives. It's about the fact that you're working towards them and that you've got a very clear pathway. And one final thing, I guess, on what a good strategy I think always does for a business, it helps you make decisions. We're all guilty of shiny new objects kind of coming our way and being a little distracted about, should we be doing this thing, or could this be a good opportunity? And for me, going back to the strategy and questioning, will this decision, will this opportunity, will this thing help us meet our goals more quickly, or will it distract us from the mission that we're on? And a strategy should so be well developed that it can help you answer that question and help you make decisions around kind of opportunities that come along the way. So that's what I feel a good strategy looks like. A bad strategy is probably just the opposite to that, where it's just not clear enough in terms of measurable objectives. Words on a page is great to get you started, but clear metrics and clear milestones and how you're going to get there is the real goal behind a strategy.
Very good. James?
So yeah, in terms of a bad strategy, I would say, not having one at all would be probably the worst possible scenario. And then I think it's very easy to copy or follow your competitors.
Love that.
As a bit of a sort of a knee-jerk reaction. They put up a social media post and they've done a massive job for so-and-so, and all of a sudden you can feel that temptation to try and swing towards that market or try and advertise a similar product because, they've sold loads of those, they're doing really well. And that has a real distraction risk within it. I think not making it clear to the business what your strategy and vision is, I think without that, you can't get people on board within the business. And for us, we're sort of going through the process of really sort of looking at our next, 5 years at the moment. And as that really as we sort of finalize and, bring that together, we'll want to make it as clear as possible to all of our staff members what we're doing and why. Because if we don't do that, it's just me and Rob trying to push ideas, and it'll just be tiring. So I think for us, making sure that's really clear. And the other thing, I suppose, is not understanding your own capacity, whether that's staff or whether that's production capacity, because it's all very well trying to do a certain thing, but if you haven't got the space or you haven't got the production capacity or you haven't got the skill set, you're not going to be able to get there. But it then does highlight at least that you need to improve that skill set, or you need more space, or you need to improve your machine capabilities. Understanding your capacity and your skill set within the business is also vitally important.
I love that, and I do love the one that you said about being distracted. It's quite funny, we are very much, if the market is doing something, we want to sort of, quickly jump on the bandwagon rather than look at whether it's right for us as a business and whether it's going to affect, our people, systems, and more importantly, our profitability. So I do love that one as well. And Lisa, you're so right about the clear metrics. As was said on that little diagram that my 5W model that we use for our clients, if you're not measuring stuff, how do you know if you're progressing in the right direction? So, and more importantly, are you meeting the needs of your customers going forward? So having those clear KPIs or key performance indicators and metrics in the organization is important. And I think more importantly, I think you may mention it, Lisa, briefly, is that, this sort of agility in the model that you're able to change and adapt. And I know James and Rob are going through that process as well, saying, can we sort of, adapt? Can we create a new division here? Can we utilize the manufacturing base that we have to do something, different as well, but just as well as possible, without upsetting the whole essence of the business. Yeah. One bit I would like to add to the narrative here is about risk management. And in the sense of, when you have the opportunity to have a look at the business, then you say, okay, if I want to take this step, what's the impact of doing that on the business? And also, if it all goes Pete-tong, what do we do to rectify? What's plan B and plan C and plan D? So that gives you that opportunity, in terms of, a good strategy document will understand the risk in the business, understand, a Labour government's budget coming next week.
Yeah.
All those sort of things will be a factor in relation to or the US election for my US colleagues who know me well.
What's one point just to pick up on something that James said there, which I thought was really important as well. You can write the best strategy in the world, but if it sits in a drawer and you don't communicate it with the remainder of the team, or you're not sense checking it and adapting it as you're learning, it's never going to be, it's never going to be anything more than this chunky report sat in a drawer. So I do think, one of the most important things is getting the strategy right, but the second most important thing is getting the entire business on the same page on that journey with you, so it's not just held by the business owner in their head, that it's alive in the business as well.
That's a nice segue to that next question, because it's sometimes people distract the overarching thing where you break it down into the individual elements, it creates the whole overarching thing. The overarching strategy, the mission, the goal, what you're trying to achieve. But in terms of that destination element, there's sort of mini strategies. So coming back to you, James, first, clearly your focus is a lot around, at the moment, operational or manufacturing strategy, how that looks like. And then obviously I'd like you, Lisa, to talk about the sort of marketing strategy as well, going forward as well. And obviously clearly there's sales strategy, there's other strategic themes or activities within the organization that everybody has to give assent to. And so I think, I just want everybody to realize that, yes, you've got the big picture here, but when you break it down to the individual elements, that hopefully help to support the main strategic goal of the organization is super important. So, give us an example of some of the things. I know, I was at a presentation the other day, but certainly on the manufacturing side, some of the manufacturing strategy that you're developing to move the business forward.
Yes, so for us, there's a number of things, but I suppose for us, there's lean manufacturing, which for us is all about removing processes and improving efficiencies. And that's standardization of parts, processes, so that you've just generally got less questions, less variance of parts and all that kind of thing. And then you've also got... for us, so lean is probably one of the big ones, but also looking into the future in terms of how we can use robotics and automation within the factory to help remove some of the more mundane tasks.
Is that an unwelcome visitor there, James, in the house? I'll let you put the music on while Lisa talks about it. It definitely is live, folks. I tell you, I didn't warn you it was live. Lovely. What about you, Lisa, on the marketing side?
Yeah, I mean, we deal with every possible type of strategy you can imagine. So there is, growth strategy, new product to market strategy, communication strategy. We're doing a lot around internal talent and communication strategy or talent pipeline strategy. I mean, it all stems to the same thing, right? It's all about growth and trying to make sure that the business is moving in the right direction with the right people behind it and the right resource. So I often try and play down the word strategy, because I think it can terrify people into being this like year-long project that's going to swallow all your time and you're going to get nothing done in that period. And that's where us as small business owners, and certainly when we're scaling businesses, we just think there's absolutely no way we can take that time out of the business. But the point of strategy is about growth for me, and whether that's a new product to market, whether it's a new demographic you want to win, whether it's a new piece of work, or like James mentioned there, whether it's making efficiencies in the business, and it's about just having real focus on that area of the business and making a plan to make it more effective or more efficient or grow more or shrink less, or it's really just having a really clear focus. So for me, it doesn't really matter what type of strategy you're planning. I think starting with a business strategy is obviously always the first point, but then, like you said earlier, Wayne, about making sure each of the functions within the business, sales, marketing, product, IT, whatever that function is within the business, manufacturing, that they each have their individual plans. And I'm a firm believer that strategy shouldn't, or the skill to build and execute strategies shouldn't just sit at the very top of the business. You know, for even your most junior team members, regardless of their discipline, particularly in marketing and sales, they should be strategically focused, commercially aware from the very, you know, the day they start and join the business. And even if that's small steps towards building their strategic ability, it's never too early to start. I think one of the biggest mistakes we can make is thinking that strategy should sit right at the top of the business only. But that's where it becomes very difficult to get the rest of the team on board and building their own individual plans. So I think making sure strategy is visible, alive in the entire business, and it's communicated well, but you have the ability to pass strategy to other members of the teams can also be really, really effective.
Perfect. Thank you, Atif, for that comment. And again, if you want to add any additional questions to the chat, I'm still happy to take those as we go on in the presentation as well. But that is so important, Lisa, in terms of the engagement of people. And I'll come back to you because I wanted to really dig deep into that one, because I think, to be fair, that implementation and going into the sort of execution of strategy really, and then more importantly, the accountability and how people can own it rather than sitting at the exec level. And James, do you want to just I mean, you can use the lean example without the cat if you don't mind, but yeah, certainly with your example in terms of just demonstrating how you got people accountable to, you got overarching strategy. This is what we need to do in the organization to reduce, improve productivity, reduce, waste, etc. And how people now been able to capture that and implement in their own teams.
Yeah. So we've been on a lean journey for a couple of years, but it's only really sort of started to ramp back up in the last 6 to 9 months. So we've visited 1 or 2 companies that do it really well and taken away a lot from that. But we have a short morning meeting every day where we bring the whole team together. It's usually about 15 minutes long, and we try to just discuss any safety issues, any defects, and do a short bit of training on, trying to improve people's understandings of the 8 main wastes that you can find within business. We've also then encouraged, and we now have 1 team member every week take that meeting and lead it. So that's really sort of pushed people slightly out of their comfort zone. But we try and encourage every morning. We stop for about 15-20 minutes straight after the meeting, and we have a good tidy up. But also in that tidy up time, we're trying to find ways to improve. So there's something that started in America, which is a sort of a system called 2-second lean, and it's just about looking at a process and every day trying to find a way just to save 2 seconds within that process or within that thing you're doing. So having that mindset really it's not massive improvements that you have to make. It's just taking something and going, right, how can I make this slightly better? And then every time you come back to it, you can improve it again and again and again. And within a year or so, you'll find that actually you've taken a 15-minute process down to 4 minutes, just from gradual, continuous improvement. And then we encourage all the staff. We have a WhatsApp group, which is dedicated just to that kind of improvement sharing. So we actually challenged the whole company to make 100 improvements in the week, which we actually did. We managed it, and people take a photo of the process or the video before, and then they show the improvement. But it just encourages the ideas to sort of pass from different people to different departments, and get people thinking, oh, I see what they've done there, I could try something similar. And all improvements, they're never perfect first time, and it's a continuous improvement. But the more, as people learn, they refine their improvements, and then that sort of knowledge is shared.
No, very good. And what do you guys use, in terms of some of the sort of tools, to really craft a strategy? Is there any sort of simple tools that you could sort of share with people that may be of interest and benefit? I know, and I'll share a couple of them in a minute, but your experience, Lisa, I mean, you do this on the day job, so I'll ask you first, really.
Yeah. So what a fabric is actually a framework to build a marketing and communication strategy, but we do get lots of business owners use it for business strategy as well. Yeah. So we do have a framework, and I'm happy to share some templates of that if that's useful to the audience. Another couple of things that we've used outside of the framework, which essentially is the process from A to Z of how to build a strategy, is very simple methodologies, not dissimilar actually to what James said there. So once the strategy is built, it tends to be quite a chunky document, and there's fear of that leaving in a drawer somewhere, as I said earlier. So we move everything from the strategy around objectives into a live Trello board, like a project management board. And so we have the yearly objectives, the quarterly objectives, and the monthly objectives clear in that board. And then we run either a 2-week sprint or a monthly sprint, depending on which department in the business. And that sprint is basically making all the key milestones visible to everybody who's accountable for it to hit the monthly objectives, and therefore the quarterly and the yearly. The reason that's really powerful is that the objectives are in front of you on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis. So they're not sat in a drawer somewhere. So there's no forgetting what they are. There's no veering off track. You can see if you're on track or you're off track. So I find the use of a project management piece for objectives really useful. And we do something very similar to what James mentioned. So we have a different team member run that sprint every 2 weeks or month, so that it's not down to one person leading that meeting, so that the whole team feels accountable for moving the dial. Segments. And I think one of the most important things when you build a strategy is that, again, it shouldn't be built just with the business owner. There are people in the business who are far more knowledgeable than the founders or the senior teams. Sometimes they're much closer to the customer or to the product or the manufacturing line, or that information is gold when you're building a strategy. So making sure the team are involved in the build of the strategy gives them real ownership of then trying to execute it and make it happen. So just involving them from the very beginning, but then also making accountable for, the milestones and the check-ins and the learnings around the strategy is really powerful.
No, very good. You want to maybe when we'll talk to James about some of the elements that Lisa was talking about in terms of getting other people involved in the process as well for the lean as well. But also you may want to talk about some of the goal quarterly frameworks that has helped really to just keep sort of top of mind the strategy in the business.
Yeah. So I suppose we have a few different systems we use, and I think as I'm mainly in the production operational side, but I know the office guys use a very similar task system. I think it's something like Monday.com, or that was used at some point and still is.
Yeah.
And then within our lean sort of focus meetings, that's where we have a lot of opportunity to discuss with the whole team what's going on, and discuss possible changes to maybe layout and that sort of thing in terms of making things more efficient. But I think for us, due to the way that we're still we're the early stages really of some of these sort of things. So we try and spend as much time with the staff understanding where some of the pain points are and how we can improve those, and looking at the processes, and standardization is a big one, just trying to remove as many systems as possible and processes so that you don't have to remember or learn multiple systems and ways of doing things, and it's everyone knows what they're doing. SOPs is important for us in terms of having live documents that can be updated, so that when maybe a process does change for the better, it gets updated so that everyone has visibility of that.
100%. Others that, I'm sure many of you will be aware of is the classic SWOT analysis: strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Even start with that. That's a really, really good way of just really understanding where the business is at the moment in time, where the weaknesses are in the organization, and the opportunities that throws up. And the risk element I talked about a little bit earlier comes under the threats bit at the end as well. So use that as well. That's a really nice, good starter. There's a load of other more complex ones, but again, they're quite easy to use. You've got the balanced core scorecard. You've got the BCG Boston Matrix. You've got the 7S McKinsey model as well. So there's a whole host of different ones that I'm sure you can Google them. We're happy to give you some tips or to put a link into the chat on some of these podcasts afterwards. But again, all this stuff is available for you to have a framework in which allows you to capture the salient elements of the strategy, where the drivers that are impacting that strategy, and more importantly, as Lisa and James eloquently outlined, is how then to just look at that on a regular basis. And I know James and Rob have this sort of quarterly goals matrix, which they outline some of the key metrics that they're looking to achieve over that quarter, and that feeds into what Lisa was saying, is that that quarterly focus, which is based on the overall strategy, allows you to stay aligned and on focus in terms of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve. So there's some basic stuff that all organizations, all businesses can do, as well as the complex ones that I've mentioned, can actually move your business forward as well. So that's really cool, really good. And also, I just want to pick up any sort of chats on Aspect. I got Atif has then just said, let me just a little question as well. I'm a freelancer and for marketing purposes, I often use ChatGPT to help write ad copy for Facebook ads and to research my target audience. This approach has been very beneficial to me. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. As the marketer in the room, Lisa, do you want to just talk about using AI? And Rob, James can talk about AI as well, because obviously that's a really big thing for manufacturing as well and data analysis. So if you want to just sort of talk about AI in terms of aiding our strategic direction, that would be great.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt using AI can absolutely help in the process. Will speed up so many areas that, otherwise you would have had to dig and find and create. What I would say is that you do not want AI writing your entire business strategy. And we are seeing that happen. It's so important that your purpose, your vision, your values, your tone of voice, what you stand for as a business, all of that business branding stuff, that it's built into the strategy. And nobody will know your customer or your ideal customer better than you and your team will. Absolutely nobody. And I'm yet to be proved wrong on that with AI, but who knows what might happen in the future. You can get some initial data there and you can get a starting point without a doubt. But I would say don't rest on the fact that that is the data you should be working off and that's the information. You have to put the work into strategy for it to be effective. It has to come from you, the business, the knowledge that you have from interacting with the customers, why they buy, why they stay with you, why they're advocates. So I'm not against using AI in any way, shape or form, and certainly writing ad copy and building strategies around audience segmentation really can help speed up the process. But I would just say sense checking, make sure that you're not taking an easy route, because I genuinely believe without proper human interaction there, you will probably miss the mark.
I love that. James, anything to add to that?
I mean, obviously with AI, for us as a manufacturer, I mean, customer service and speed of response is something that one of our main goals and targets within our strategy is to have that as kind of really important and really at the forefront of the customer service and the customer experience. We're looking at using ways to essentially feed all of the common questions and information that a customer might ask into a database, and then allow the AI to not reply for us, but to assist with responses to customers. So I think, you've still got to use the personal touch and, the language and everything that that customer would expect to hear from you, because you don't want the customer to feel that they've just been fobbed off to an AI bot. I think that's a bad idea. But there are systems that allow, they help prompt responses based from other responses you've given or documentation that you load into it. And that is something that we're looking at using quite a lot within our strategy, because our staff spend a lot of time responding to the same sorts of questions again and again. So actually utilizing the AI in those kinds of ways can really make the most of our customer service and sales team.
No, they're very good. As a sort of final point, oh my gosh, our time's flying. As a final bit, I just want to just pick you guys' brains, because I know it's been a topic on some of our clients coming through, in terms of the power of the strategic branding or personal branding to aid your strategic goals going forward. And a lot of people say, well, I just want to get on my work. I don't want to be, seen to be visible elsewhere, etc. But the landscape has changed in terms of how businesses are perceived, and more importantly, to be able to convey their culture and values to a new generation of workers, and a different group of purchasers who have a different purchasing managers who have a different way of actually evaluating businesses, etc. So I know that's something that you speak a lot into, Lisa, and I just want to just kick off the discussion around that finally, and then obviously James is speaking that from obviously a manufacturer trying to become a bit more out there in the world as well. So Lisa.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely think it's more important than ever before that founders, business owners, teams are building personal brands. And you're right, the landscape has changed in this respect so dramatically. But what hasn't changed, it's just become way more prevalent, is that people buy from people. We've always been that. It's never been people buy from businesses. They buy from the people behind the business. And years back, it was much more difficult for us to buy without doing lots of the research ourselves. So we had to pick up the phone and speak to a human, or we had to go visit a showroom and meet the human. So you would get a feel for those people really quite quickly, and you would decide if you wanted to buy from them. Now we have such information at our fingertips. Roundabout correct, but I think it's something like 87% of the purchasing journey is now done before a business even knows that customer's checking them out. So we as consumers, we as customers, we as businesses, we as buyers are doing most of our research about the product or service or the business that we want to buy for before the business even knows it. And what we're doing is we're checking out the people behind the business. We're checking out what the business stands for. Are they credible? Are they people we want to work with? And the way we're finding that out is by those people, not the business, those people being visible on social media. And so like never before, it's so important that the business people are building their reputation, are building their credibility, are building awareness of them and their products and their services in their business, but are also just building a reputable brand for themselves. And those businesses that have really visible leaders at their forefront are doing incredibly well from it, really, really well. So it's definitely investment in time. It takes a lot of time, and often, we're already busy juggling 100 plates as business leaders. So actually sitting writing social posts is probably some of the last thing on our list. But it is a really effective way to drive new business into the business. And actually, again, when you have a proper strategy for it and you can measure it, the return on the time can be really, really high. So yeah, it's definitely a big investment. And I don't think this is going to go away. It's only going to go bigger as we go forward. So I think the more doing it, the better, really.
100%. James?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn, the power of that really has been incredible over the last couple of years. And I think for us, I personally have made a real effort to try and be really honest and engaging on LinkedIn. As a business, we have the way we take photos, the way that we present all of our shots, and we don't hide anything on any of our sort of business posts. But on LinkedIn, I will still get probably 10 times the engagement on my post than we will on the business post, because I'm talking about things on a level that is the same level as many other people reading the post. So I'll be honest about, having a really busy week, or a week with a couple of struggles, or thanking the team for their hard work and showing photos of sort of more behind the scenes, and especially for us as a manufacturer, that has a real impact, I think, on people looking to buy, because they want to see not only that they're going to get a really nice flight case, but they're also quite interested in seeing, this was actually made by real people and all that sort of thing. So sort of honesty and sort of not really hiding anything has a really big impact, I think. And that really draws people in. And like Lisa said, it's people are buying, they're buying from me and Rob. They're buying from my sales guys at the end of the day, really, when they're sort of making those sort of that communication and those relationships. So and we'll go to a trade show and recognize some of those people approaching us that liked and engaged with the sort of LinkedIn posts, and it gives you somewhere to gives you a starting point, a conversation, and before you know it, they're a regular client and spending an amount of money with you each year. So I think it's been really important to utilize, and I just try and do it 2 or 3 times a month as a minimum, just to sort of keep that going. And yes, it can be tricky, but I always just try and find time just to spend 15 minutes, just to put some thoughts down and get it out there.
Good, excellent. No, it's so important, and I want everybody to realise that strategy is not only just as well some of the overarching element of the business, but there's some key elements within that, and obviously, your personal branding as a business and as an individual as well. It's a key component of that overall marketing strategy, brand strategy that you will be obviously adopting as well. So just be aware of that. Conscious of our time is about to go, so I also want to leave some final thoughts to our 2 esteemed guests today. So ladies first as well. Lisa, have you got any final thoughts for the folks here that they can take away from today? Thank you.
Yeah, I guess just don't be afraid about strategy. If you're not entirely sure what to do, starting something rather than starting nothing is a much better point. And it doesn't have to be this all-consuming piece to begin with. You can start with really simple strategies, and the more confident you get with them, you can build them out over time. So I would always say, make sure you start, keep it simple, try and keep some discipline around regular checks on the strategy and making sure it's alive in the business. But use the tools that are out there available. We put a ton of content out on the Fabric website, which is free content to just try and help people understand strategy better. But there's as Wayne said earlier, there's millions of different theories and execution models out there. Spend some time learning one of them, and then just get to work and refine as you go. Don't overthink it to begin with.
Very good. James?
I think just be aware of distractions. Really try and put some time in the diary in order to focus on making that time to actually focus and write the strategy or develop the strategy. I'd say that's probably very important, but also be really aware of your customer. Writing a strategy that looks good from your point of view might not look good to the customer. So just try and find some customers that can be really honest with you, so that when you're actually developing those strategies, you're actually focusing on products and markets and things that are actually going to solve that customer issue. That's going to be probably the strongest sort of possible outcome if you can really focus on that.
Excellent. Our time is done. I thank you again, folks. I really do appreciate your time as well. Just sort of finish off any bits and pieces as well. Some takeaways from my perspective. Really be clear about the mission vision that you're trying to do. Align that with solving, as James has really eloquently pointed out, customer needs. And Lisa's put that in terms of being clear about the strategic goals and objectives. And once you've executed the plan, but adjust and refine as necessary. And there's so much in here. I think really all of you will need to just have a recap and a rerun of a replay. But all that will be on YouTube, LinkedIn, live again to re-look at another time when you feel an opportunity to do that. So please do that as well. Reach out to any of us on LinkedIn, please, and obviously happy to have a little chat about some of the things they may have heard in here. So just reach out to me on LinkedIn, and happy to engage a little coffee Zoom to have a little chat about stuff. And please, as I said, all of us are on LinkedIn. So just look them up, Lisa Eaton and obviously James Holland on LinkedIn. And again, hopefully, they will give you some help and pointers and tips. And they're good people. They don't bite. So please engage with them as you feel fit going forward as well. So we're done, folks. I really do appreciate your time. Thank you again, Lisa. Thank you again, James. Really do appreciate your time, and hope that you found it of interest and value and benefit as well.
Thank you.